Good evening and welcome to our session on a roundtable session on sexual harassment in the new normal. Today's session is a roundtable conference that we are hosting. It's a closed door roundtable conference. What that means is that there are only the panelists in this session. However, this session is recorded and will be shared so that many of you can view this at your convenience, whenever you'd like. This is the first question, and the sub bullets that we would like the panelists to also take up when they are discussing this is the most commonly seen forms of virtual sexual harassment, because last 18 months or so most corporations have had their people at home. So what are the commonly seen forms of virtual sexual harassment? And in your opinion, do you think the law provides for virtual forms of sexual harassment?
So, I believe that when you talk of sexual harassment, when we look at the law and we interpret the law, there are two kinds of sexual harassment. One is quid pro quo, and the other one is creating a hostile work environment, right? When you talk about, and I'm talking, let's forget COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID. Let's talk about what the law says, right? And the cases that I have investigated and have been a part of. 8 out of 10 cases have been, in my experience, under the hostile work environment, where a hostile work environment gets created. Now, this gets created because of various things that happen, right? It could be a text that is sent. It could be a picture which is which has a sexual intent or content in it. It could be abuse or a use of a word which has a sexual intent or content in it. It could also be a joke, right? I don't see how these have changed post-COVID or virtually, because at that time also all these would happen virtually. Now also it is happening virtually. So I would think that there is really no difference in terms of sexual harassment virtually or non-virtually. Yes, it does remove a certain segment where there is quid pro quo and there's actual touching, or there is a physical touch involved. That probably, yes, has been something that has not happened in the last 2 years, or things when happened during an annual conference, or maybe during work travel, or going out for bars, going out for drinks at bars. So that's got stopped. But the other whole piece around creating a hostile environment for all these ways, which are actually virtual, has, I think, continued. So to me, I think it does. And if I go back to the law does talk about it. The law does give very clear what can be seen as a sexual harassment. And it does talk about text, it talks about showing pornography, it talks about, again, usage of words that have sexual content. So I feel it is about how we interpret it. The law is there. It is about interpreting, and I think it still holds that much of good even in this virtual space.
So, Anthony, I think, yes, we have a younger workforce. We do have a mixed workforce, but we do have millennials as well. We did have a complete work from home for some time. Then we moved to hybrid. And that's, I think, the future for us going forward as well. In terms of whether it's increased or not, again, I think I would agree with Priyadarshini in what she's saying. I don't think there's been an increase. The medium has changed at times. So we had the workplace was always very controlled. There were defined guidelines on expected behaviors at the workplace, and that got blurred when people moved to remote work locations. And I think for a lot of people, it was easy to forget basic workplace norms. Defined work codes diminish. So for example, working hours, dress code, professionalism overall diminished to a large extent at times. Perpetrators, I think, have found newer ways to harass colleagues virtually. These may not have been very prevalent. So for example, you dress inappropriately for a work call, you touch yourself inappropriately for a work call, or Earlier it could have been limited to a WhatsApp message or stalking on social media. So Insta and Facebook, you could do that. But now there are a lot of platforms available. There are platforms available where you can do this on the pretext of work. So you could insist on work calls after hours or at odd hours. You could insist on video calls after hours. It could be because of a power dynamic involved or may not be. So I think the medium has changed a whole lot. And British Airways, we are very, very conscious of the work environment, whether at home or in office and at Call BA. I think we took cognizance of the fact that there is a possibility that the harassment could increase because it's a new domain for all of us. We were completely working from office and we moved to a work from home situation and then to a hybrid situation. And very early on, actually, to mitigate some of the risks that we anticipated, we launched multiple platforms. These were connect platforms. People could, for example, write in directly to our MD and she would personally respond back to people, to each such person who wrote into her. I think we took it as our responsibility to instill confidence in our people to be able to reach out to us, because we had new people who did not know us, who did not know our culture, did not know how we are going to perceive a complaint. And therefore, it was very, very important for us to take the first step and tell everyone we are available, we are here to listen to you. And we made available a lot of platforms for people to reach out to us. So yes, the medium has changed. But in terms of an actual increase, Anthony, we haven't seen an actual increase as such, and I hope it continues that way. Yes, I think it's become a lot more insidious now, a lot more difficult to identify. People, I think, to a very large extent, may not realize for a certain point of time that they are experiencing sexual harassment. And unless we tell them that this is actually sexual harassment, they won't really know, because a lot of times you will just think it's ignorance. So this person is not used to working from home and therefore may not be dressed appropriately or the posture is incorrect. But in all probability, we could have said that for the first month or two of the pandemic. I don't think we can give that excuse anymore.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. Bihu, you've probably seen a very wide variety of sort of cases that came up in the last 18 months by virtue of sitting on a number of different internal committees. Is your experience similar to what Priya and Ritika have shared in terms of what you've been seeing?
Yes, in fact, quite similar, as they rightly said, that the numbers haven't increased. It's just the medium. And, to add to what Ritika had said, take it from there. Most of them, what I realized, and this is not just those where I sit as an IC, just as a legal advisor, they didn't know whether, somebody calling you after, say, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock and asking for a meeting aside of what maybe a collective meeting has already happened and talking about things outside work, could that be sexual harassment or not? They didn't know. It is gradually over the year when, policies have changed, or there have been different types of training where the employees now, I feel, have a very good idea as to what they could ask for. So, and Priya has rightly said, the law has always, posh law from, right from 2008, the Saurabh Malik case where, Justice Sikri so rightly said that nowadays, and that too way back in 2008, where video conferencing was not a norm. That point of time, he included that to be a part of a way that somebody could be sexually harassed. So coming from 2008 to now 2021, where this is normal, I think the law doesn't need to be amended per se. It will be great if it's amended to include these so-called virtual forms of harassment. But in the absence of that, I think the law is very clear. We have judgments, and from not just from, the way we see it is not just from a section of the courts, not just say a Bombay High Court or a Delhi High Court, where you see more of such cases coming in being metropolitan. From a Rajasthan High Court, there is in fact, I saw 2020, there is a judgment from the Sikkim High Court, wherein all these questions of virtual sexual harassment have been tackled exactly the way they should be. That yes, your physical offices are shut, but does not mean that it doesn't get transferred onto your virtual platforms. One or two instances which I found initially very, they were different in terms of sexual harassment. So what would happen is, every organization has departments. So they would make teams on WhatsApp to discuss a particular thing. One such case came wherein one person who already had this so-called, he didn't have cases against him, but he was known to be, as they say, in loose terms, a flirt. So he would pick up on certain ladies and outside that group would call them or on chat with them regarding, it would start with work, but it would end up on something else. So these ladies didn't know. And obviously he was at a higher position. Would this amount to sexual harassment? Because we are not supposed to be outside that group for that particular work. Why are we asked that? So these new nuances are something which every company would have to, also be a party. So it can't be just courts, who will look into these things. I guess it's like the company, the training, the trainer, the lawyers, whoever is involved. It's a synergy. How we need to kind of explain that what was there at physical equally applies to the virtual, whether there is a specific inclusion in the law or not.
That's very interesting actually, Bihu. In fact, that case that you just mentioned, it actually is throws up interesting questions as to whether that separate WhatsApp chat could amount to workplace sexual harassment. And you're right. I think this is an area where it's not just going to be the courts that are going to determine, how what the law is or how the law has to be implemented, or because this law actually has a lot of areas of gray, and it's up to internal committees how well they are trained, by whom they are trained, and the issues that come out during the course of training that makes for a sort of enlightened internal committee that can actually hear such cases and implement it within the spirit of the law. Do you, particularly Priya and Ritika, your thoughts on whether your organizations are looking to change or amend policies to reflect some of these issues that we are discussing, the virtual workplace, the kind of, the case, for example, that Bihu mentioned. These are all areas of gray. Do you feel that there's a need to modify or change your policies, or do you believe that the policy and the law as is fine?
You want to go first, Ritika?
You please do. That's fine. Absolutely.
Okay. So the two things here, Anthony, are you asking whether companies are changing or do they feel the need to change? Which is it? What is it that you're asking?
Well, primarily our companies modifying or changing.
Okay.
But of course, linked to the fact that they do feel the need to change.
Okay. So what I have experienced and what I have advised companies, and I currently am with the Tata, so I have been talking with the Tata group of companies, right? Is they're all expanding. If they were looking at only women and expanding to men and women and opening up, making it gender agnostic, right? Are they looking at actually adding those virtual bits and, like
being more specific?
No, not really. Making it more broader in terms of gender agnostic, so that sexual harassment gets addressed, whether it is done by men, irrespective of gender, or actually irrespective of all the three genders. So that is what I am seeing, but I'm not really experiencing the second bit.
Got it. Okay. What about you, Ritika?
Again, on similar lines, I think I think like Bihu also mentioned that the act in itself covers everything. It is largely an extremely well-written act. So as such, the policy in itself, I may not think of changing it. What is the need right now and what needs to be addressed is the education sessions for our employees, and not only for our employees, actually, it's for the managers, it's for everybody in an organization, including the ICC, so that awareness creation and education of our employees to let them know what are the new facets of sexual harassment. I think if we can do that, I think that covers it all. The policy in itself largely will talk about steps. How do you escalate something? What is the process of investigating? So that's something I don't think we're going to touch. What we have been working on, though, is awareness. And that has been going well for us. There is a lot of awareness, but there are newer people coming into the workforce. So we can't stop. It needs to continue.
So this is, I think, the Sanjeev Mishra case decided by the Rajasthan High Court, where the complainant and respondent were in two different states, and obscene messages were sent by the respondent to the complainant post working hours. And therefore, the respondent's contention was that it did not fall within the ambit of the POSH law or their own Bank of Baroda's internal guidelines, because it did not qualify as the workplace on two accounts, I think. One is that they were in different states, different physical locations. And the second was that the messages were sent after working hours. The Rajasthan High Court, of course, held that, and this is a 2021 judgment, if a person harasses a woman in another location on a digital platform, it will come within the ambit of being harassed.
The reason why I would say that is, see, as I understand the sense that companies really do not wish to kind of revisit the policy. But you know, when you have to see it from a court's point of view, see, whenever a policy is being, what is a policy? It is just rules and regulations to tell the company employees that this is what the overall working is going to be like. So what happens is, if you don't amend the policy to an extent that you include things which are changing, when you come to court, God forbid there is a petition, wherein the onus is on whether the employer discharged their obligations of making the employees aware of the changes in law or in the changes, your awareness programs may not stand at as high a standing as your policy document would, because that would be seen as a document which I'm sure most companies do. They get these employment letters signed saying that you will adhere to all policies of the company. So the moment you do that, it is in the interest of the company or the employer that you've discharged your onus of incorporating the change in the company and letting your employee know. An employee might miss an awareness program, but the employee would never miss signing on that document of your employer, that agreement. So from the point of view, I thought I just,
No, that's a very valid and fair point, Behu. In fact, it's a strong case, made out for amending the policy from time to time to ensure that your employees have understood that with changing times, policies also change. And they are also, when they sign up for a change in the policy, they're made aware of a change in policy. It also further reinforces the organization's message that these forms of sexual harassment also need to be dealt with. So moving on, the second question, sexual harassment cases, have they increased or decreased? And two subparts really, does work from home provide the perpetrator a reason to believe that they can get away with it? Do they feel a greater sense of, I guess, safety, the perpetrator that is, behind a digital screen that allows them to sort of commit certain acts and say certain things and do certain things because they feel that it is different from actually committing those acts in the physical world? And the sort of second aspect is, have the blended working hours posed a new challenge, meaning that now the day is extended. People are spending more time, at home, but working. And there is a sense that you can reach out to anybody any time of the day or night, because now it's a virtual work from home scenario. So is that posing a challenge to corporates, is the question. Ritika, maybe we could start with you in terms of your experience at Call.BA in the last 18 months or so.
I think maybe not specifically Call.BA, but my thoughts around this is that a lot of people, they are used to being watched, and that is when they behave the way they're supposed to. They behave within a framework that has been provided to them, and that's in the office environment. Now they're in a space where nobody is watching them. They're supposed to do their jobs, and they have their interactions, and they have the opportunity to deviate from the normal codes of behavior because they're not being watched. It may be a one-to-one interaction, and they may feel that they will be able to get away with it because there are no witnesses. The person can just say ignorance to say, I was just being a colleague. We were talking about work. I had called you for work. So I think there is a sense that they may have, that they may be able to get away, is my sense. But the fact is, this was initially, Anthony, I think everybody, most corporates at least, went out of the way to make sure that this problem is arrested to a large extent. There have been multiple conversations around it. So to sum it up, yes, I think perpetrators are looking at ways where they can do this without being seen. But it's not that easy if people are aware of what sexual harassment is now.
That's really interesting, Ritika. The fact that people behave differently when they know they are being watched, or when they are even psychologically, walking into an office, you're always conscious of the fact that you are expected to conduct yourself and behave in a particular manner. Whereas when you're sitting at home, probably in shorts or track pants or whatever, and you're off camera, or maybe whatever, there is a certain level of comfort that a perpetrator may derive from
Yes.
working from home, which leads them to do or commit acts that they ordinarily would not have. If you need to emphasize certain points, especially in a work from home scenario, both in the form of modifying your policies or otherwise informing or intimating your employees through emails, communications, etc., I think that could potentially make a very big difference to enlightening the workforce on appropriate ways of how to behave at the workplace. Fair enough. Priya, what's your experience been? Either at the Tata Group or even otherwise, what have you been seeing and hearing with respect to this?
2-3 things here, Anthony. And the first question, I think we answered it earlier on. So I feel that, it's not a question of increase or decrease. I do believe there are instances of sexual harassment that happen constantly. It is that people do not talk about it, and people do not know that this amounts to sexual harassment, right? So I would consider, even in the virtual space, and even today, we still having those, and both Bihu and Ritika spoke of the various ways in which it's happening, but people don't want to talk about it. Any which ways, my experience with women is they don't want to talk. They want to talk about it. They don't want to make a complaint.
This work from home scenario. So there was this case wherein there was sexual harassment, and there was over WhatsApp chats and all of that, of course, post-COVID. The girl did not want to complain. You know why? Because she was at home. The IC proceedings were to be virtual. She said, "Main kahan se lungi? Where will I have my husband, my in-laws?" So it was so difficult for her. She wanted to go through that because, in a physical world, she would have just gone to an office, deposed or done whatever. She didn't want to do it because she didn't know where to take that, So these kind of challenges are very difficult in, from an IC's point of view as well.
So my take on this would be, experiencing sexual harassment has always been overwhelming. And the last year has been especially difficult for a lot of people, irrespective of whether they were experiencing harassment or not. There were a lot of people around the world with mental health issues. They experienced losses. There were insecurities around job stabilities. Almost everybody's families or friends, somebody or the other was impacted. So the mental states were weaker, the anxieties were higher. And therefore, and as you rightly mentioned, Anthony, I think there is a chance that one could have been a little more vulnerable. You are not your normal self. You're a little more vulnerable right now to falling prey to sexual harassment and not being able to identify it. You're anyways not your confident self. You're in a low life state right now because of the situation around you.
Training. Maybe I think I am best suited to talk from the IC point of view because the other panelists are stalwarts in the industry and the employee training. So what I have seen, Anthony, those companies where your IC is well trained, more than half your job is done, because they know, what, where to, which case to sift. Is it actually a genuine case, or is it just, sometimes it is just out of, like, especially these times, as they rightly said, it's out of some mental issues which the person is facing, they become that perpetrator. So whether it really requires just a conciliation, or it requires the entire inquiry process. So your IC training for virtual, or hybrid environment is imperative, because they sometimes don't know where should we record the evidence, humko kya lena hoga, are audio recordings admissible, how do we do it? So I feel training the IC regularly in these times, hybrid or online, is extremely important, as important as you would train your employees on the other aspects, or you make them aware.
The panelists agree that training and sensitization and awareness creation is the way forward. I think every organization needs to invest in it. And I think Priya so eloquently summed it up: training, 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 and more training. I think that's sort of really it. I think every organization needs to focus on it, make sure that their workforce is fully sensitized and made aware. Any last thoughts, Priya and Ritika, before we close this discussion?
Not really. The only thing that I would say is I think all organizations, and we should just talk about this more. There needs to be normalization. There needs to be people for both. I mean, the more uncomfortable things we talk about, the less uncomfortable it becomes. And I believe in that very strongly. I know of people who have had to quit jobs because of cases, and they've not been able to get back in, closing teams. And I feel that that's not fair. So I feel deeply, I feel organizations should not shy away, should talk, shouldn't take silence as everything is fine. So yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with you, Priya. I think that's the whole aspect of normalization is key. And only with repeated conversations can we actually hope to get there. Ritika, any last thoughts that you want to share?
I think a whole lot of work has been done to remove the stigma from the victims and put it on the perpetrators. But we have a long, long way to go yet. This pandemic and work from home, like I said, I feel it has taken us a few steps back, not in terms of, the cases increasing or decreasing, but in situations where people may not be raising it anymore. And once again, I think that's been the crux, and you've summed it up, and Priyadarshini has done the same. We've been talking about training ICC members. It is all about conversations and awareness, and we need to make sure that corporates provide employees a comfortable environment. They give them platforms to be able to voice out, and for them to take each complaint seriously. If I start not taking each complaint seriously, what happens is if a victim is faced with silence or not taken seriously, that's going to send out the wrong message. So I think each complaint needs to be handled promptly, sensitively, and we need to send that message out to our people, and that rests only with the corporates to continue the conversation, to be open, and to provide a platform to employees at all times.
Thank you, Ritika, and I think you've summed it up beautifully. Really speaking, lots more conversations that corporates need to encourage at the highest level, so that it percolates all the way down. More conversations actually is the way forward in order to sort of eliminate the menace of sexual harassment at the workplace, whether virtual or physical. So that's the way forward.